Good day, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. This is Canine Conversations. I am your host, Robert Cabral, coming at you almost live, but with a new podcast gear. We got a new microphone. We got a whole new thing. I think you're going to love the podcast. We're going to we're amping it up. We're getting more and more people listening, following, and I'm so proud of that. I'm so happy for that. Today, we're going to talk about what makes a dog aggressive. Canine Conversations, here we go. So I got an email from somebody that said, actually the person's name was Harry Chapman. He says, dangerous. What makes a dog dangerous? That was the basic context of the question. And it's something that I've talked so much about, I've lectured about, worked with dogs that are aggressive, worked with handlers, worked with all kinds of things, especially with my work in the shelters where I really deal with a lot of really unruly dogs, aggressive dogs, and been made to understand a lot of things that other people don't, because in the shelter environment, we're not dealing with the same kind of dogs that, when owners have a dog. So if you have a dog and you call me and you say, hey, my dog's aggressive when you do X, Y, and Z, then I can kind of give you some indication of what's going on. You're giving me information and I can give you information back. So that's really, really huge for people to understand. I can take these headphones off now. So it's really important for people to understand the difference that when you're in a shelter environment, you don't know the history of the dog, you don't know the genetics of the dog, you know very, very little, and you're kind of trying to put pieces together. So people who work in shelter environments really have a harder time understanding what's going wrong with a dog than people who own a dog, because they kind of have a history. They see patterns, they see this, they see that. In a shelter, you're taking a dog out of a kennel. You don't know what you're getting. You could get eaten up alive, or you could have the nicest dog in the world on your hands. None of that really matters. What matters is the way we approach the dog, and we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff. But let's talk about Harry's question of, what makes a dog aggressive. And I kind of got some notes so I can kind of, ping pong off of those a little bit. It's really important that we cover the whole gamut, right? So we can't, we're not going to say, only pit bulls are aggressive, or only German shepherds are aggressive, or only Chihuahuas are aggressive, because there's aggressive dogs in every single breed. It doesn't matter. I mean, Labradoodles, I've seen aggressive Labradoodles, and it's more about what forms that behavior in a dog. So first of all, I'll tell you that I've worked with many, many dogs in shelters, in private practice, in training, that have had very erratic behaviors. So aggression, for the most part, and I would say almost for 100%, is a dog's response to something. In other words, aggression is a reaction, is a response. It's not necessarily an independent action. In other words, the dog doesn't just get up and go, okay, I'm aggressive. The dog is usually aggressive because of a suspicion. The dog thinks something's going to happen and acts on that suspicion. Whether or not what he was thinking was going to happen actually happens, he responds to the fact that he's thinking it's going to happen. And that's what makes it really, really bad. That's what makes the dog act in an erratic way that we can't put our finger on. So the dog thinking, okay, that dog is going to bite me, I better bite the dog first. So a lot of times when dogs have had bad experiences, puppies, they become more reactive to other dogs later on if they've been bitten by a dog or something like that. So if they weren't socialized, we'll talk about all that. But that's the response of the dog, that the dog is actually proactively, or reactively, I should say, not proactively, reactively responding to this suspicion or fear. Whether it's real or not real, it's real in the dog's mind. The dog is going to respond to that. So that's first and foremost something we have to look at. Now, bad genetics play into aggression quite a bit. So people, if you look at the pit bull scenario, these aggressive fighting pit bulls were something that was kind of formed, I think about 100 years ago in the South. These fighting line dogs were really a specialized breed. They were bred by these game fighters, and the genetics of those dogs were culled out if they weren't aggressive, right? So normal breeders will cull out or kill off dogs that are aggressive and only breed good dogs. And these, fighting idiots were culling out the non-aggressive breed puppies and keeping the aggressive ones. So later on, that leaked through, which is why I have such a huge issue with all these backyard breeders and this, Labradoodle, this, mini poodle, whatever, Schnauzer poodle, whatever the hell they are, it screws up the genetics of the dog. So genetics of dogs is really a huge issue for a dog to be stable, for a dog to be balanced, for a dog to have a really happy life and to produce quality offspring as well. So the bad genetics is the first thing we have to look at. How many dogs in the dog's history had bad nerves, had brain issues, had health issues that led them to be aggressive, or were just aggressive on their own, just had a really naughty, bad nature in them, and then that was never culled out and it was never trained out, so the dogs are therefore aggressive, and they continue to produce these aggressive dogs. Bad rearing also makes dogs aggressive. So a dog that has a bad upbringing, for example, a mother that's very dominant or really hard on the dogs, or very, just overemphasizing behaviors, can then also produce aggressive puppies. And those puppies then, not put into check, grow into aggressive dogs. Dogs, during this whelping phase, it's really, really important that they have a mother who understands good structure. Maya was an amazing mother. I saw her with her puppies. All those puppies were really, really solid because she was such a great mother. Now, a bad mother can make a really bad puppy. So, when dogs are bred, we always look for a dog that's going to be the mother to be a really stable, solid temperament, good mother. If the mother is real wigged out and sketchy, then the puppies will become like that. Those things are all carried through in the genetics, whether they're genetics or acquired behaviorally in the dog through the experience of being with that mother. That's all these dogs know early on, so that's the way they're going to end up. Now, also dogs that have no siblings tend to be very antisocial dogs because they've never interacted with other dogs. And there is two components to aggression always. There's the aggression of human to dog aggression, or dog to human aggression, I should say. And then there is the dog to dog aggression. And dog to dog aggression is going to be more common with a puppy that wasn't raised with other puppies, obviously. Sorry, I'm fighting this cold, and I'm just trying to keep my throat wet because my throat has been so sore. So, I've known people, I'm not going to name names, but they had gotten a dog that had no siblings and no mother, and since it was like 1 or 2 days old, they bottle fed the dog and cared for the dog. And obviously it's a very, very kind, humane, super compassionate thing to do, but it doesn't give the dog the structure of having been raised by another dog. That's really what dogs need. I mean, you hear all these stories, the boy was raised by the gorillas or the wolves or whatever. It's all cute, but when a dog doesn't have the structure of a mother, how a mother dog raises a dog is super different than the way a human mother would raise a dog. Now, some people will take care of a puppy and will help it if it has issues, but the best picture for the dog to be stable, be environmentally and emotionally stable, is to be raised by a dog with other puppies. The issue that also rises up is just really bad breeders, right? Bad breeders can screw up even a good dog. We have to look at what they're doing for the dog. So dogs require, a certain amount of socialization. I would say a lot of socialization early on, because if they're not socialized, they have a huge issue with suspicion, with fear, with nerves, and all those things. And when we say socialized, we don't mean just getting them around other dogs and other people, but we mean getting them around other environments, like sounds and smells and sights, textures, feelings. All these different things need to be experienced by the dog for the dog to have a really solid upbringing or solid nerves. And the nerves and the constitution of the dog are what makes the dog, right? That there's no denying that. Nobody's going to ever deny that solid experience, the solid nerves of a dog is really going to help a dog, because dogs act out of aggression in one of two ways. It's either out of fear or it's out of dominance. The dog is either a bully, it's just a jerk, or the dog is just a basket case of nerves. And fearful dogs a lot of times are more dangerous because they're fighting for their life. A bully is just going to fight, he's going to bite, he's going to do this, going to do that. He's a jerk. He's basically just an asshole. But a fearful dog is always in this flight mode. Is always thinking the world is going to end and they have to hurt something so they don't get hurt. Right? That's a horrible, horrible way for a dog to be. It's something that can be counter-conditioned. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it's really important to understand that those are the two components. Fear and dominance are the components that we see. And for the most part, we see more fear aggression in dogs than dominance-based aggression. Just because good breeders, they cull out the bad dogs. They don't breed the bad dogs. Again, backyard breeders, puppy mills, dog fighters, all these idiots are always they're gonna breed whatever they can do. They can sell for a couple $100. But a good breeder will not do that. So that's why it's important that we focus on really good breeders to help the genetics of the dog, the overall stability of dogs in the long run. Although, I've worked a lot with rescue. I'm certainly pro good breeders because they have a huge important component to play if we want to keep dogs. We're not going to solve any kind of shelter problem by putting all the breeders out of business. It's complete bullshit. Don't believe that for a minute. I've worked in shelters for over 10 years. I've seen dogs. I've seen the sadness of dogs dying, of needing to be put down, and I'm still telling you, I still believe in good breeders. I've got no issue with that at all. But so a poor breeder won't socialize the dog. They won't give the dog structure. They won't do any training early on with the dog. A good breeder is going to test the genetics of the dog. They're going to know the genetics of the dog, but they're going to keep looking for the genetics of the puppy as it comes along. They're going to do behavioral testing, temperament testing. They're going to do aptitude testing and all these different things to see how the dog will best place in a home, with either a working home or a pet home or whatever it is. We want to look at those components more importantly than we look at the breeds of the dogs. Now, that being said, people say, well, there's pit bulls aren't that aggressive. There's more aggressive, Cocker Spaniels. And I don't deny that. I don't deny that, that there are as many aggressive Cocker Spaniels or Dachshunds or, whatever it is. But I will tell you, I would much rather face an aggressive Dachshund, Chihuahua, Cocker Spaniel than an aggressive Pit Bull, Cane Corso, Presa Canario, Mastiff, whatever they are. The level of aggression is directly the level of aggression as it encompasses danger, as it poses danger to people or other dogs, is directly related to the size of the dog, and that's something nobody really is getting into. Right? They say, oh, there's this behavior evaluation, and they've evaluated and they found the pit bulls were the lowest aggressive, and labs and whatever Cocker Spaniels were more aggressive. And I don't believe that, first of all. But I'll tell you, that test, by the way, I will tell you, I looked through it, and dog to dog, the dogs never got to meet, right? If you look at an AKC test, like an AKC Canine Good Citizen test, which is a really good indication of the temperament of a dog, or a German Shepherd, an IPO or IGP, whatever they call it, Schutzen BH test, gives you a much clearer indication of the dog's temperament and the dog's potential aggression. So if, a 100-pound German Shepherd is aggressive, that's something to concern yourself about. If a 4-pound or a 10-pound Chihuahua is aggressive, it's not that big of a deal, right? Unless you're putting your face in it. But again, I'd rather get bit on the face by a 4-pound, 5-pound Chihuahua than a 100-pound German Shepherd. We don't look at that. A lot of times people overlook that, and they go into this whole, bleeding heart, trying to be politically correct, say, oh, we need to save all the dogs. We don't. I'm going to get into that as well in a second. So what makes a dog aggressive, what makes a dog dangerous, obviously, is the aggression. And the aggression stems from the issue of the rearing, the genetics, the breeding, the whelping, the anti-socialization, the non-experience the dog has had as a young pup. And as it's getting older, how those behaviors are either channeled or squashed. So if a dog has aggression issues, if we don't train it out of them, it ain't going to get better. There's no way a dog is just going to automatically lose that. Just like fear, they're not going to automatically come out of fear if we don't untrain it. So people have said to me over and over the past 10 plus years, well, this dog is really aggressive, nobody can handle it, but you could handle it. And I don't deny that. I don't deny that I can handle most any aggressive dog, and the dog could live with me and have a good life and whatever. But I don't want that dog, right? I don't want the liability of that dog. I don't want the headache of that dog in my life. If one of my dogs becomes aggressive, I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm going to work with it unless it poses a serious danger to someone else. Then I would be humane and put it down, because I don't think aggressive dogs are happy dogs, right? They're not happy at all. They're just super, super angry, creatures that go around the world pissed off, like a lot of people do nowadays. And I don't think those people are happy. I'm not naming names. But if you're that angry about stuff, you're not that happy. You can't be angry and happy at the same time. So the point being here that what the aggressive nature of the dog spells out for society is a menace. It's a menace to society. And if you have one of these dogs and you're not like me, where you can understand to watch for the behaviors, watch for the body language, watch for the triggers, and you just kind of blindly hope that, for the best of the dog, you're not going to get that, right? You're going to have an accident. Somebody's going to get really hurt, and it's probably going to be a child or an older person, woman or man. A dog is going to get hurt because you're not paying attention at the right time. And granted, you could be doing everything right. You could have your dog on a leash, completely in control, and somebody, willy-nilly not paying attention on accident drops their leash, and boom, you've got a huge dog fight. You're not going to be able to fix all this. You're not going to be fast enough. I've had Maya on leash and somebody dropped their leash and the dog comes running, tearing up to Maya, and it's a friendly dog, and Maya doesn't like dogs getting in her face, and I had to lift her off the ground in order to keep her from attacking that dog. And that's not because she's aggressive. It's because she doesn't like dogs getting in her face, right? So when I take Maya to dog show, she lays down, hundreds of dogs walk around her. She got no issues. She got no issues with Bosman, with Jimmy, with Dwayne-A-Mater, with Goof, with nobody. But if a strange dog comes up and gets in her face, she's going to bring it. So that's something you have to think about. So nobody really wants these aggressive and dangerous dogs because they're a menace to society. So when we clean up all the shelters and all the good dogs get adopted, we can work on those dogs. And that's really somewhere where a lot of good rescue organizations, and I know two off the top of my head, that go in and take these kind of dogs and work with them. They can't get enough funding. They should have more funding because they're doing the work that everybody's screaming about. Oh, these dogs need a home. They need a chance. They need this. They need that. Well, we need to fund that. So the aggression in a dog, if you're going to do this training, so to speak, on the dog, that aggression will never be squashed out. And you've got all these trainers on YouTube and on the internet talking how they took the most aggressive dog in the shelter and turned it into a sweetheart. And that ain't true. It's just not true. They've managed the aggression perhaps, but it's always a ticking time bomb. There's always something under the surface, right? The aggression must be addressed, and it must be addressed at a surface level where it resides, not an explosive level, not at the top. And that's what a lot of trainers tend to do, which I think is incorrect. So they'll take the dog is aggressive, and they'll just shock the dog at the highest level when this other dog is around. Well, the dog learns that series of events. I see a dog, I have a collar on, I get shocked, I shut down, and the dog's, again, not happy. The dog's not benefiting anything. The dog is not learning anything and is not going to get better. But eventually the dog will snap. And it will snap one way or the other. It'll snap and be a complete basket case, a nerve bag, which you don't want to be around, or it's going to snap and kill the other dog, or it's going to turn and bite you. And a dog with really solid, good nerves that has aggression issues will just turn and bite you, especially if they see you've got the remote control. They're just going to bite the hand that has the remote control, and that's not uncommon. So a lot of these trainers who are selling a bill of goods on the internet saying they rehabilitate aggressive dogs and they do this, they do that. There's also those trainers who say they'll channel this dog or train this dog and then channel it into a new home, and they take these dogs and kill them. So I've heard about that. Complete bullshit. If you're doing something like that and taking a donation from somebody and giving somebody hope, and you're doing that, you're a real asshole, a real piece of shit. And, for those people, I think there's a special place in hell for them. It really pisses me off to even know those people exist, and those people call themselves rescues, but they do exist. So if you have an aggressive dog and you're giving it to somebody and they're charging you $2,000 or $3,000 and they say they're going to place the dog, but you can't find out later where the dog is, and they're not, you're not allowed to because for the benefit of the dog, they're selling you a bunch of bullshit. So don't do that. So there you go. That's what makes the dogs aggressive. I've worked with these types of dogs. In a good situation, they can be managed. The aggression can be managed. If they have a strong owner and the owner's willing to do the work, yeah, they can manage it. It's really important. I think it's dynamite when people do that. But to think it's just going to get solved and cured, that doesn't happen. And sadly enough, if that was happening, there wouldn't be so many dogs in the shelters, right? It's part of it goes from people not giving their dog structure, which I talked about early on, and part of it goes by that these dogs just kind of get given up on. And if they're aggressive with you, they're going to be aggressive with the next person, and that's something people don't look at, right? They don't ever think that. They go, well, maybe somebody else can take the dog. If the dog is aggressive with you and has known you for several years, it's going to be aggressive with the next guy. It's not going to change. So let me address a couple of questions. I got a bunch of Ask Me Anything questions that deal with aggression, so I'm going to address them today here on this podcast. So one goes out to Newer Shark, who says, I've always been curious about this. If you come face to face with a highly aggressive large dog who's going to chase and attack you, what is the proper action to take? So really good point. First of all, if the dog is going to chase, dogs don't necessarily chase things that aren't moving, generally. They chase things that are moving, like you're nervous, your hands are moving, you're trying to run away. Chances are if you're in an open field or you're somewhere, you're in a room and you can't get away, that dog is gonna catch you. There's no way around it. The best thing you can do is kind of fold your hands in on yourself and stand as still as possible. Sometimes with some dogs, you can take a step towards them and give them a strong no, and that will help. But the one thing you don't want to try to do is to outrun a dog, because what it does, no matter how aggressive that dog is when he sees you, if you're chasing him and you cannot get away, that frustration level will build with the dog, and then the dog will become more frustrated. That frustration will lead to more aggression and more pain when he finally bites you. Southtown Hick says, I have an 8-month-old male Doberman. He's pretty good apart from not coming when called. This means he stays on leash. He's also uber aware of everything. He can't seem to catch up with his energy. What technique would you recommend to help him come when called so he can be free from the leash sometimes? Well, the first thing I would do, and this has nothing to do with aggression, I don't know how this got in here, but what I would do with the dog is I would give him firm corrections on a long line or an e-collar, and now wouldn't have him off of a long line until I know he's got 100% solid recall. Otherwise, you're doing a huge disservice to the dog. Daniel McLean says, hi, Robert, thank you for the video. Please, if you could answer, my 1-year-old Ridgeback has a history of food aggression, especially with high-value bones. Will he get aggressive again when he feels protected in the crate? Will he get aggressive again when he feels protected in the crate? Well, if he feels that you're going to take his bone, that's a resource issue. He's going to do that no matter where he is. So you need to undo that. And what you're going to do is you're going to want to trade him bone for bone, toy for toy, treat for treat, whatever that is. That's the only way to fix that. This next one is kind of long. It says, for George Alfonso, I have a 12-year-old female puggle and an 11-month-old German Shepherd, female German Shepherd. 2 females. Problem already. My German Shepherd is very good with people, although she is excitable when she first greets them, wanting to jump up and getting mouthy. I'm working with her by putting her on a leash when company arrives and making her sit. She is also apprehensive first meeting strange dogs. She barks and acts aggressive, but it turns out that she's actually afraid, which is what we just talked about. Once released, she typically runs with her tail between her legs until she feels the other dogs out. I got it. At which point she has a great time playing while avoiding any dog that she feels is too aggressive. The one area we're having problems is with her aggressive behavior in the home towards our puggle when food is involved. I can put food out for my puggle in the same room, and my German Shepherd will just stand back and let her eat with no problem. However, if there's food in my German Shepherd's bowl and the puggle comes near it, all hell breaks loose. I'll always feed my German Shepherd separately in different locations downstairs. I close the upstairs door until the puggle doesn't interfere. I make it a habit to remove the bowl immediately after the German Shepherd's finished eating, but there have been several times when the German Shepherd didn't eat all her food and I was distracted and forgot to remove it. Don't get distracted. You got to stay on this. If this is your dog, you got to do this. Our puggle has extremely strong food drive and will come downstairs straight to the German Shepherd's food bowl. The German Shepherd is having no part of that. My Shepherd immediately goes into attack mode. We can interfere anytime with the German Shepherd while she's eating, never showing any aggression. But if her food is left in her bowl and the puggle even enters the room, the Shepherd's on alert. If the puggle shows any interest at all, this is really long. Okay, so what you're basically saying is the German Shepherd defends her food bowl. So, you're going to want to, first of all, I wouldn't let these dogs get together when they're eating. You have a 12-year-old puggle and an 11-month-old female German Shepherd. You're going to want to work with this on the German Shepherd. You might start hand feeding the dog and doing all that stuff, but keep the 12-year-old puggle safe, please. You are not going to solve this, George. You're not going to solve it, and it's only going to be a heartbreak if the German Shepherd attacks the puggle. So my opinion to you, keep the puggle safe. He's 12 years old. Don't know how much longer he's got. It's a long way to go for that, by the way. Karen Fairney says, what would be the best way to correct a Chihuahua? Mine is a 2-year-old shelter dog. It doesn't matter, shelter dog or anything like that, Karen. We're going to talk about that no matter what. I've had her just over 1 week. Too soon to even start anything. I'm concerned she will slip her harness. She slipped the one she came with, but I managed to grab her. Now I have a tighter one. I'm concerned putting a regular collar on such a delicate neck, but worried she will do more damage to herself with the aggressive but fearful behavior towards her other dog. Well, first of all, she's aggressive and fearful towards your other dog. You're not doing your dog any kind of a service. So if you have a dog and you're bringing an aggressive dog into the home, don't do it. Get rid of the don't bring an aggressive dog into a home with a really balanced, nice dog. It's complete bullshit. People do it all the time. They want to save the world, and what they're doing is they're screwing up the life for their own dogs, and it's not fair. It's just not fair. It's like, if you have a roommate and your roommate brings a serial murderer in to live with you, it's not fair. Don't do it. If you have a nice dog, don't bring an asshole dog in. It's not fair to your dog. I'm going to tell you that right now. And the other thing of, such a delicate neck, that's all bullshit too. Put a nice martingale collar on the dog, teach the dog manners, teach the dog structure, yes, no, good, phooey, whatever, stay, whatever the basic commands are, you got to teach the dog. You've got to hunker down. You got this dog for 1 week and you're already kowtowing to her, being delicate, but she's aggressive to your other dog. Complete BS. Do not do this to your dog, man. I'm speaking on behalf of your dog. Don't do this disservice to your dog, man. Kaylee Tan says, hi, Robert, love your videos. I have a 3-month-old corgi. He tends to bite my feet or other people's feet. Sometimes it seems playful, but sometimes it doesn't. And when I try to give him something else to do, bite another toy, give him a sit command, he doesn't always listen, or if he does, he will go back to biting, and sometimes he is acting a little more aggressive. I've also tried giving him a timeout or ignoring him, but that doesn't always work. How do you recommend I correct him and teach him that biting people's feet is unacceptable? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, first of all, you correct the dog, but he's a 3-month-old puppy. Puppies bite ankles, and he's a corgi. So he's a corgi. He's gonna be hurting the whole time. He's biting, trying to hurt. You're going against the dog's natural instincts. You need to put the dog in a crate, give the dog times out. Don't overcorrect a puppy because you're going to create a monster on the dog. Just get the dog to understand he's not supposed to do that. You're going to give the dog the corrections the dog needs, but you're going to give the dog something to do. So when you don't want the dog interacting with you, put the dog in a crate. Make sure the dog understands structure. Make sure the dog understands that when he's interacting with you, he's doing something positive. You're luring, shaping behavior. You're teaching him sit down, whatever. But at 3 months old, you're already going way, way, way above what you should be doing with the dog. You're making the dog neurotic. Don't do that. Okay, second to last question. Becky says, I found a German Shepherd that no one wanted. That's going to be a problem right there. Very high-strung puppy behavior. He went to a trainer for 2 weeks before coming to me. We have had him a month and continue to use the e-collar. Okay. Established by the trainer. It really helps me to provide him structure when he gets up before being released or nipping at our hands. We have a 3-year-old grandson that will visit in June. I hope it's next June. I hope I didn't miss this one. And we don't want this open mouth going to the grandson. I don't get to these Ask Me Anything. If you're a member of my site, I get to the questions weekly. Sometimes these questions are a year old, so I pray to God it's next June. I never hear you talk about using one. You're talking about an e-collar. I do use treats a lot too. What is your opinion on using an e-collar, how to stop the nipping? He's not aggressive. We think looking for treats. He's not aggressive. We think he's looking for treats. We say easy, and he can do the leave it command you teach. Well, Becky, if he's doing the leave it command I teach, and he's not aggressive, I hate, I love e-collars. I'm a huge fan of e-collars. Both Maya and Goofy are trained on e-collars. I've trained tons of dogs on e-collars. I think it's fantastic. I think it's one of the best tools. I'm going to at some point do a series on e-collars. But people overuse them. People use it like a remote control. Like click, 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 click. Do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that. And that's not the way e-collars work. E-collars can be channeled into promoting good behavior and curbing bad behavior, but it's not just a push of a button. There has to be behavior shaped in that. And if the dog is just nippy, I mean, you're not even telling me how old your dog is, but I wouldn't be bumping the dog on an e-collar. If he's doing it because he's nervous or hyper and you're putting him on an e-collar, chances are you're jacking that drive even higher up. You need to curb the drive. You need to channel the drive, and then you can work on the e-collar. So that's my opinion. The last question goes out to Joseph Joss. I don't know I can't pronounce it. I'm thinking of getting a German Shepherd. I'm inspired by your videos, and you make it look so easy. It is for me. I would love your advice on how to choose a working German Shepherd to be protective guard dog. I don't know how to train him to be aggressive. Yeah, you shouldn't get a German Shepherd. You shouldn't get a working German Shepherd. Meaning to do his job when me or my family might need his help, and to be calm when my friends come over, and to listen to me and understand the command. I would really appreciate it. First of all, if I could explain that in a video, I'd be a millionaire. They'd be super rich. There's no way to explain that in a short video. So you need to, if you want a protection dog and you need a protection dog, then you need to buy a protection dog. You need to buy one that has been professionally trained by somebody. You might consider going to an IPO club or a Mondio Ring club and finding a dog that's maybe 2, 3, 4 years old that somebody competed with for years, and they want to get a new dog. They don't have room, and that's sometimes a great way to find a really nice dog because it's been trained by somebody who's qualified, and it's a dog that already has a good foundation. If you don't know how to train a dog, getting a dog to be a protection dog, it will never happen. I mean, even really well-versed obedience trainers can't train a dog to do protection. And first of all, it's going to take two people. You need two people involved, and you need somebody who has an immense amount of knowledge in protection dog sports and understanding the drives, the genetics, the what makes the dog do it, because it's a game for the dog. It's taught as a game. If it's taught through pure aggression, the dog can't be a protection dog. The dog can only be a junkyard dog or an attack dog because the dog doesn't have that off switch. So I don't recommend getting a protection dog, or a puppy and trying to train a working line German Shepherd. I'm glad you watch my videos. I'm glad you think I make it look easy. For me, it's really easy. For many other really good trainers, including protection dog trainers who I greatly admire. A lot of them are my friends. I think it is easy for them because it's a system. It goes A to B to C to D. And if you're really good, painting is really easy. Or singing is really easy. I can't sing to save my life. I took lessons for years. I can't sing. So don't do it. If you really want one, go to a protection dog club, find one that somebody doesn't want, get that dog, give the dog a good home, and join up at a protection dog club and get involved and see how it works. But it's not just a weekend project. Please don't do it. Really, really bad. So anyway, that wraps up this podcast. Thank you so much. The sun is starting to set because now I'm doing videos with these, so it's a little harder. I'm going to get this podcast up for you guys. It'll be up tonight. I hope you love it. Thank you. Please check out all my other podcasts. Spread the word. Podcast is growing. I'm super happy about that. Make sure to check out my membership section. A lot of great stuff there. Follow me on social media. You know the drill. I'll see you next week. Thanks.